Mily, and I'm currently studying in Dulwich College, Singapore. So moving to Singapore, I've been extremely impressed by the diversity of cultures and races. So gender equality have always been an interesting topic to me. So this is the reason why that I'm doing this documentary to interview 8 outstanding women from 4 different ethnicities in different age groups. And my goal is to capture individuals' different perspectives in order to encourage young girls to break free from social norms and envision their future. Growing up, what kind of gender statement have you been told?
Yeah, I grew up in a household where very much the idea was you could be anything you wanted to be.
Oh.
My mom, though, she stayed home with us, and so there was kind of this interesting dynamic where we were told you can do anything you want to do, but my dad was the breadwinner in our family, and my mom stayed home with us.
Okay.
And so then as me and my sister and brother got older, the kind of expectation was that my sister and I would go to college and we would have a job after college and we would work. And so I think the expectation was that we would find a career, but we got to choose what the career would be.
Yeah.
Many years ago in China, actually, women doesn't have equal status against men, right? But lucky or unlucky, through the Cultural Revolution, actually China become really equal for women and men. You know, they have a saying, 妇女能顶半边天. Literally, they are saying women could be the other half of the sky, you know, to support the whole world together with men. So I think, I was so lucky that I always believe men and women are equal when I growing up.
It's not so much the statements, but it was more a perception of how girls should behave and how boys should behave. It's different rules for girls, different rules for boys. So, for example, don't stay out too late, don't go alone to certain places. Stuff like certain jobs are not for girls.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, really.
One of the things I always heard my parents tell me was, you're a girl, so you should know cooking. And you shouldn't answer back to elders. You should be very respectful to elders.
Yeah.
I used to get very furious when they said that to me, and my brother was never encouraged to cook or learn cooking. Today, looking in hindsight, I feel like both were very good advice, but they could have been framed better as cooking is a life skill and you should learn cooking because it is a life skill, not because you're a girl.
Yeah.
So I think that context matters and how that same advice is presented matters.
Yeah.
My brother can get away with not doing things, you know, washing the dishes or like, you know, doing housework, but it's always be a must, you know, for me as a girl, you know, you are a girl, so you have to do it. So that's pretty much like how I grew up, you know, in my household. But otherwise, you know, growing up, education-wise, you know, career-wise, like it's something that my parents have always been fair, you know, like you want to do this, go ahead, you know, so yeah.
I don't have any gender statements growing up. I mean, both my parents don't really, you know, talk so much about all this in our home. Yeah.
So thankfully, my parents never really pushed any gender stereotypes upon me, but it was just the general like sit like a lady. That was a big one. I always had to like keep my legs crossed and everything. And just I was always like talked about the future, how I'm gonna be a mother and need to be more caring and stuff like that. But other than that, they really let me express myself how I wanted to.
While growing up, there are a lot of things that influenced my opinion. For example, like social media and also my family. In my family, I mostly received information about gender equality. However, from older generations, I would hear comments like, boys are stronger, boys shouldn't cry, or maybe like girls should stay at home and care about the children more.
So what does being a girl mean to you?
Being myself, really. Like I feel like me personally, I do really like a lot of the stereotypical girly things like the color pink and all that, but a lot of girls don't, and that's totally fine. So I think just being a girl and just knowing that you have a community of other girls around you just means a lot.
I think even, you know, they think girls are smarter than men.
Yeah, true.
Yes, because I have an elder brother, and my mom always referring to me, saying that, look at your sister, she is doing so much better than you. So I guess, you know, for China, specifically for the generation from 1980s and onwards, girls has a great opportunity to do what they want.
It doesn't mean much. I do as I please. I'm my own person now,
Yeah.
so I don't let any constraints or social or constructs define how I behave in my life on a day-to-day basis.
Being a girl means that there was still going to be some challenges because of gender inequality, but it also means that I would face these challenges and try to overcome them.
So, what do you think is the main difference between a man and a woman?
Interesting question. I think for me personally, sexual organs, I think that's how it would determine, whether you're a girl or a boy. But otherwise, personality-wise, everything is about how you want to be. So to me, very straightforward. It's just the difference in sexual organs. Yeah.
I think just the way we're raised, like if a man, stereotypically men and women are kind of raised, women are more nurturing and caring and supposed to be careful, and guys are supposed to be more tough and stuff. And because they have more guy friends, it's kind of, they have more people that act the same around them, so it's kind of, as we grow, we have more differences.
Well, number one, I would say is, we have limitations to our strength. Definitely our build is built differently from man itself. Characteristics, mindset-wise, I would say that women tend to be fast thinker as compared to men, right? Yeah. So other than that, I think nothing much, because all these things, like especially traits, personalities, and characteristics, right? Both men and women can learn and can be if they want to.
I think the most distinct difference is the men usually they have better strength and power. The physical strength is definitely better, and I think for girls we don't have to compete in that way. God built us that way. And for ladies, I think women always have stronger inner power. Talk about resistance, talk about persistence, talk about facing bad situation, and we usually can handle better than men. That's what I believe.
I think that it's interesting because I think that the expectation, if I think about feminism, is women can do anything that a man can do. So from a career standpoint, etc. But I also think that there are a lot more expectations on women. So the expectations on the role of a female in the family are a lot higher. And then in a workplace, even at a company as great as mine, where 50% of the company is women, there's a lot of women in leadership roles, I still think it's really hard to manage the expectations, both in and outside of work, when I don't think that men are being held to the same standards at home. And so I find it to be difficult to manage. The expectations, I think, are very different for males and females. And I do think it is still harder to prove yourself in a professional way when so many of my mentors and coaches and managers were male. And that dynamic, I think, is just starting to shift, where now there are a lot more women like me in senior leadership positions. And so now I'm mentoring young women, but when I was coming up, a lot of my mentors still had to be men. And I think that that's really the dynamic that's shifting. And I think the big thing I think that hasn't shifted is the expectation of women taking maternity leave, the expectation of women making it home in time to see their kids versus the expectations on men, I think are still really imbalanced. And so I do find it challenging to be a female who does both things, to have a career and also have a family. I think is hard, but also, I'm able to do that, which I'm really grateful for.
Except from biologically, I think men and women's mindset are different. For example, I'll get like the Barbie movie. Many men don't think it's a good movie because this movie talks about inequality ironically. And first it talks about that there's like a world where men are treated inequality, but then it talks about how girls are treated inequality. And that's when people think it's kind of not fair, and some of men just don't like it.
I come from a scientific background. I'm an engineer myself, and I know there are scientific differences between men and women. These manifest both in terms of physical power as well as emotional and physiological, psychological constructs into how they approach problems, how they approach issues, how they communicate, how they provide comfort. So in many places, like these differences kind of evaluate. I have grown up as a girl with a lot of other girls. I am mother to 2 girls. I have actively tried to give toys to my girls which are gender neutral. So I give them cars, I give them heavy vehicles as toys. It's not always unicorns and rainbows, but I naturally see my girls gravitate to pink color, and then they graduate at a point from pink color to purple color, and they naturally gravitate to unicorns and rainbows, but they don't have that interest in cars or guns, for example. This is not something that I have actively encouraged, but I see that this is natural, it comes naturally to them. So I do believe that men and women are in a way wired differently right from birth.
So when you heard the term gender inequality, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think maybe it's more of not having the opportunities of men, women, boys, and girls as well, right? When you mention gender inequality, then that means all these 4 men, women, boys, and girls doesn't have the opportunity to choose what they want to do and all that.
I think when we talk about gender equality, normally it starts coming from a very workplace kind of a scenario where women get treated differently or for the same amount of pay, even if it is as a laborer or it is coming to whatever different level of work you do, either as a blue collar person or a white collar job. There is differences in how pay is distributed, there is difference in how responsibilities are allocated, there is difference in how men and women are perceived differently, and the standards that are set for women versus men are different. That's the inequality that exists, because in some cases the work might be similar, and the measure or yardstick of measurements should be commensurate with what that individual's abilities. There are roles, let's just say white collar roles, where women can do better, but gender pay gap is a big thing today. So I think gender equality for me, what it means is people should be respected for the skills they bring, which is not a function of the gender they have, depending on the type of work they're doing, really.
Yeah, I think gender equality to me means that I'm afforded the same opportunities that males are offered, and also that the expectations of me are not based on my gender. So I think today the expectations can vary. People expect a different style from women. They expect a different outcome sometimes. I think for me what that sometimes means is I have to be very tempered in the way that I work. So it's not just what I do, but also how I do it. There's an expectation. And so I think for gender equality, I think it's the opportunity to have the life you want outside of your family, inside of your family, and the ability to do it without being held to certain standards that maybe are not the same standards other people are held to.
I think just having the wrong idea about our abilities and that affecting us in our future, like it goes way past just harmful stereotypes that can offend us. It reaches our jobs and it limits us what we can do as a profession and how much we get paid, which is really unfair.
When you hear like gender inequality, I would just think about discrimination, stereotype because of your gender. For example, you're a woman, so we're not going to take you for our job even though you're really good.
I have a little bit different view on that point. I think talking too much about equality, talking too much about asking for more power. Actually, it sounds like you are not confident that you don't have the power. So I always believe gender equality should be women should feel confident to do whatever they want to do instead of just go forward like I want to fight for a job with a man, I want to fight for a promotion with a man. Rather, if I feel comfortable, I want to be a mother and be with my kids. That's also kind of like equality. It's like I can do whatever I want and I'm good at.
Gender equality to me is about giving the same opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, like basically, if I am a girl, if I'm a woman, you know, I get to get the same chance of someone that is a male, you know, in the industry. But at the same time, it really depends. For example, I guess there's certain industry that you can't help but have like a stigma about a certain gender, you know, being in that, you know, like industry. So yeah.
I'm going to quote someone here. There's an actress, Priyanka Chopra, she explained this really well. So it's not, to me, it's not, I'm not contesting that men and women are different. There are physiological differences. A woman may not be as strong as a man and may not be meant for certain jobs. So that's not what we are contesting here. What equality means to me is that on a cerebral level, if we have the same job or if we have the same intellect, the opportunities open to you should be the same. There shouldn't be a disparity there.
So have you ever felt like empowered because of your gender identity?
No. I think no. To that question is because maybe I don't really feel there's a difference, or at least like I don't encounter, you know, a situation where or someone who is male gets better opportunity than me. So you know, I think to that question. Personally, for me, I didn't experience that. But I'm sure there are people out there who probably experience, you know, that situation. Yes.
Growing up, as I said, there were things that we weren't allowed to do because being a girl. But not so much anymore. Because now I make my own decisions. And sometimes the constraints are within our minds because of the way we are told we need to think. So yeah, not anymore.
At school, I think because my character or my personality traits, because I would say I am confident with myself, right? So I voice out a lot of things. So I do get leadership roles almost in, you know, my whole entire life of, I would say, 20 or 25 years of growing up and being in school as well. Yeah.
I used to feel restricted from sports being a girl because there are a lot of boys that seem so much stronger than me while playing, for example, basketball or volleyball, and I just didn't want to try the sport. However, now as more girls touch with these sports like basketball, and I started to try it too. I started volleyball. It's a really nice sport, but now I'm also doing kayaking.
More often than not, I feel more empowered by being a woman than I do restricted. And I think that probably my generation is one of the first ones that really felt that way. You know, it wasn't very long ago in America that women couldn't vote, or women couldn't have a bank account, or women couldn't do certain things without their husband's permission or their father's permission. And now I think we're getting to this point, certainly in the US, and you know, I see it in other countries at different paces, where you know, women have less holding them back. So you get to then spend more time on the things that feel really empowering about being a woman. And so I think women are really good at building communities and supporting each other and mentoring and coaching and, you know, caring for each other. And so I think, you know, once the societal restrictions are off women from a legal standpoint and then from a societal expectation standpoint, I think then you get to enjoy the positives of being female. So, you know, the things that come with it. And I think some of that, for example, is whether it's female friendship, female community building. I certainly have felt that since I became a mom. So, you know, 5.5 years ago, I had my first child. And then to see the way that women sort of coach and help and build each other up through that process. I've seen sort of the power of a community and how female, you know, empowerment is in part about reducing barriers, but it's also about thriving in the environment you're in and supporting each other.
Thankfully, I've lived in countries where I've never really felt restricted in very serious ways, just very minor. Like For example, I am into sports, but I never felt comfortable talking around about it because I feel like I might start getting questioned too much or be judged because I'm doing too much, basically.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what career you choose. Are you smart enough to choose something which is more suitable for our strengths? It's like if you really go for something need a lot of physical strength
Yeah.
or need a lot of time from us, maybe that's not really the best career for us. But something need us to really think more creatively or provide more attentive kind of service to people, or being a people person. I guess those career can make us feel more empowered.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why I choose banking. Banking is definitely, or finance industry is definitely more suitable for ladies, I feel.
Yeah, I guess.
In terms of empowered, yes, I do feel very proud that I am a mother and I have that ability to give birth, which my husband does not have, men do not have. In terms of restrictions, yes, I do feel, sometimes I do feel on a daily basis, I cannot open new bottle jars. I seek help from my husband to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay. I also feel restricted in some sense because there were instances in my career early on when I had just completed my master's in business administration. I was looking for a management role, and this massive oil and gas company told me that we cannot hire you because one, you're a girl, at the age you are and the life cycle you are, you're going to get married, which means you're going to leave us. And I was someone who came from the chemical industry. I had the right kind of experience for that role. They selected 2 guys from my batch who did not come from oil and gas industry. And it was made very clear to me that this happened because I'm a girl and I would get married. In hindsight today, I think that I could have sued them and made a lot of money. But at that point in time, we did not have that level of awareness where people could openly say that in an interview. Even a government company or a public service undertaking could say that to a candidate. So that's where I feel restricted. Not that it held me from my career. I moved to a different place. I made my mark in a different industry completely. So it wasn't I would say a comment on my ability. It was just a judgment made upon me based on my gender.
Yeah. So moving from your own country to Singapore, do you think there's more or less gender discrimination?
I think in Singapore, I haven't come across, maybe because I have also always worked in multinational organizations, and the industry I work with is also in the tech industry, versus the industry I come from in India is from the core sector. I'm a chemical engineer, so it's a very different industry compared to tech industry, and the kind of work is also very different. So in Singapore, I definitely feel there is slightly less in terms of gender roles. The difference is also that one is a developing country versus another is a highly developed country. But I have seen, and even growing up, even if I feel my parents have told me that, oh, you need to learn cooking because you're a girl, they have never really held me back from opportunities, or they haven't given me all the support that I wanted in terms of where I want to pursue education, which city I want to go and live. So I still feel like in a corporate setting or in a work setting, it might be different. There are laws. How that laws are enforced is a different story. But I think both countries offer a good amount of support. So at an institutional level, it's different. At a social level, I think it's slightly different.
To be honest, because I was a foreigner in China and Singapore, I kind of lived in a bubble with other foreigners. So the culture in China and Singapore really didn't affect me all that much. So I can't really speak on how citizens in China or citizens in Singapore feel. I remember in Singapore, once I was buying a football jersey for myself, and I was asked, are you buying it for your son? Like my son, which is interesting. But I think in Bulgaria, they're very, like, the gender stereotypes are very much enforced there. A lot of women stay at home or cook, while the men do the hard work and stuff. But I have definitely noticed a difference in China and Singapore.
I think Singapore is, in terms of career advancement, in terms of corporate environment or even entrepreneurship, women has equal rights with men. But unfortunately, at home, in the family setting, generally Singapore ladies are still giving a lot of submissive to the man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I think maybe Singapore is so much more traditional than China.
Oh, really?
I guess in terms of China culture, Chinese culture, and filial piety and the family seniority and things like that.
I think anywhere you go, there's bound to be, a bit of all this. Yeah, like I wouldn't say there's more here in Singapore or there's less here in the other countries, but I think it's not so obvious in Singapore. Yeah, because we are not that big of a country to have this discrimination or like gender inequality, because it is just too small for us to even experience it. Yeah.
In Singapore, like the social media, it's more inclusive, and the society itself includes more people. For example, there are more races here, and everything just includes more.
There's a couple of differences between the US and Singapore.
Yeah.
I think one, I do feel like a broader portion of my community in the US had females working in the US than in Singapore. So, and it could be because of the community that I've met in Singapore, but in the US, almost all of my friends were working. It was a lot more common to have two working parents, and here I think partially because there's so much influx and people are moving in and out of Singapore, and so as you move, sometimes somebody has to reevaluate whether or not they're going to work. But I work here, my husband doesn't, and he works part-time, but he is one of the few parents at the playground who's male.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's that dynamic. I do think that you feel like there are less working females here. So I think that's one thing that feels a little bit different. But the other thing, if I think about the difference in Singapore since I've been here, is the expectation of help to help at home is much easier to access and much more widely both we're able to access as well as people do access. And so in the US, it felt like, the household duties were all on, sort of me and my husband. Whereas here, we have a full-time live-in helper.
Yeah.
We have a lot more support from the schools. So even things like busing. My son gets picked up at 8 a.m. He gets dropped off at 4 p.m. Whereas in the US, there's a lot more involvement from parents to get kids to and from school. So I think I feel like Singapore is set up with the expectation that parents will need help. And I feel like because so much of the disproportionate mental load of parenting often falls on the female in the family, I think that help that Singapore has set up a system to enable has freed me a lot to focus on both my career as well as the time that I do have to spend with my family is more quality.
I think overall across the globe, it's become better. I moved to Singapore 12 years ago, and I think in today's day and age, it's not as much as it probably used to be.
Yeah.
So I don't see it as much.
So you mean it's because the time zone, because...
I think the times have changed overall.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, I think certain industry, like for example, I give you an example like nursing, right?
Yeah.
I think in that industry, when I was growing up, who wants to be a nurse? It would probably be women, right? And you seldom hear males saying that, oh, I aspire to become a nurse, when I, grow up.
Yeah.
So I think certain industry would probably have those sort of like gender stigma, I wouldn't say discrimination, but it's more of stigma.
Yeah.
Like, male probably wouldn't be able to be to do a good job as a educator or like a early childhood educator, for example, because you seldom get to see male in the early education sector, teaching, young kids.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So who's your biggest female role model who maybe you admires to or inspired you ever?
I think it depends on what aspect of my life. When I was really young and I learned about about Malala, I felt really I felt grateful that I even, I could go to school because there were young girls who weren't even able to do that. So she was a really big inspiration to me. I remember even reading her book.
Oh, yeah.
When I used to do swimming, it was Katie Ledecky, who is an Olympic gold medalist, and I really wanted to be like her because she was dominating the women's swimming. And also my mom and my godmother, because I think they're really kind and they're really caring, and I really want to be like them when I'm older.
The lady I feel quite inspired by was a politician from India. She passed away a few years ago actually, but she has been in politics, which is a very difficult field. She's been in that field from the 70s, which was a very different world when you talk about gender equality. And she's risen and she has done that, retaining her essence as a woman who is known across as very kind and somebody who can build consensus. The world is increasingly very polarized, where she had the ability to bring multiple people together and maintain relationships and bring it with humor. And on top of that, she has been a fantastic orator, and I have seen her speeches in 3 different languages. So I think it's somebody that I definitely look up to. Her name is Sushma Swaraj.
Oh, there's a model named Twiggy. She used to be a model who promotes androgynous. Yeah, so when I first saw her on covers, right, I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know that, women can actually pull the look of short hair. Yeah, so she started that era of, having this boyish look. I looked to her so much that I even call myself Hannah Twiggy up till today. Yeah.
A role model, I would say Anne Hathaway. She's an American actress. I really like her because she used to face hate comments because she was such a perfect person. As the movie Princess Diary came out, she received a lot of hate comments online and people saying that she's too perfect and that she's fake. However, she faces all of these hate and still was a strong person. And recently, her hate comments started to change and she gains a better reputation.
So if you really talk about who really inspired me a lot, I think my mom actually did that. Yeah. She actually, she was a university teacher, so a professor, so she seldom spent time with me. So I almost never get any direct teaching from her. Okay. She's so busy, but because she's so busy and she decided to pursue a master's degree when I was a teenager. So at that time I was like, oh, okay, to pursue a degree at 40 plus is actually okay and it's normal.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, there are great women throughout history, Mary Curie, for example. But it's also the people you meet on a day-to-day basis. So, for example, a colleague I work with, she's a single mom.
Yeah.
So the way she balances her work life and her personal life. And then within your family, within your mothers, your sisters, and the resilience that they show on a day-to-day basis.
In Singapore, for example, if you know the ex-president of Singapore, Halimah Yacob, not sure. So she's actually one of the Malay role model that I think a lot of the Malay, youngsters or even Malay as in general will look up to. I think she's such a great role model because she was holding such a powerful position, in the country. So, but growing up, I don't remember having a female role model that is that powerful, but so now we do. So I think people are starting to, I guess, be flexible, be open to give these sort of roles, to women. So that's a good, I'd say that's a good start, to things.
So I went to Smith College, and one of Smith's most famous alumni is Gloria Steinem. And she was the founder of Ms. Magazine, and she's kind of considered one of the godmothers of feminism. And I think she's one of the people that I would consider a role model because she really highlighted some of the issues facing women in a way that really made people in America confront those issues. So she's definitely a role model. And in fact, I was really lucky when I was at Smith. I was working as a student waitress and I got to meet her. And so it was wonderful. I got to serve her tea, and then she said, oh, are you a student here? And we got to have a quick chat, and she asked me what I was majoring in, and I got to have a quick chat. And even in those 2 or 3 minutes where I had tea, I was serving her tea. She was so inspiring. She was asking, what are you doing? What are you going to do after school? What are you going to do with your degree? And I feel like she just had such a clear, inspirational, inspirational personality.
Yeah.
So in addition to the work that she did, I can see how successful she was, in part because it felt like even in 2 minutes of talking to her, she was actively trying to build me up as a person in a 2-minute span. And so I think both from a professional standpoint, I see her as very aspirational and what she did for the feminist movement in the US, but also on a personal note, because it really made me remember how powerful it is in any interaction when you have with somebody, how you can make their day and you can kind of carry somebody or build them up, even in small ways in addition to the big ones.
Yeah. So if you got the opportunity to meet her, what would you ask her, or what do you want to talk to her about?
Just ask her how she did it. How did she, because it takes a massive amount of bravery to do what she did, and I just want to know how.
I don't have questions for all these women. I just look up to them and, just want to be like that.
I would want to know, how did she actually face all of these problems she had? For example, like what people see her as, and how so many people don't like her, but she still know how to overcome it and still become the her now.
She has passed away a few years ago, but if I did have a chance to meet her, I would just ask, how did she maintain that positivity and energy and retain her charm staying in something like politics all these years?
Because I have 2 kids of my own, right? So I think the question I'm gonna ask her is, how did she do it? Being a career woman, having to juggle family and career, how did she do it? And especially at the time when, a lot of these powerful women roles were not easily available, but she was already, heading towards that. So how did she do it? Was there any challenges that she faced? I think those were some of the questions that I think I would ask her. I would love to know what's the answer.
So when you were small, what kind of female do you aspire to be? Or when you were small, what kind of dream job do you have?
My dream job was, of course, to be a PE teacher, physical education teacher. I was, brought up in a very sports-eccentric family. Both my parents they are runners themselves, they're athletes. My siblings are all into, athletics, badminton, basketball, you name it. So we are very sporty. So last time I wanted to, become a physical education trainer, teacher, and then it didn't happen.
Okay, alright.
It's funny, I didn't ever think that I would go into business. And I grew up in a family of teachers. And so both of my parents were teachers, and the expectation was you find a career that you like, that gives back to the world and that is empowering for you and provides for your family. But since I came from more of a humble family, I think this career path was a bit of a surprise to me. I got into it very young, and then I just realized that I really liked doing it. And I was good at it, and so I wanted to keep progressing. And then I also saw, I also saw the impact that a big company with good purpose and values can create in society. And so once I started seeing the impact that some of the companies have on the world, then I think it was not necessarily like I thought when I was younger, which is, an altruistic career would be something like teaching or directly helping, and then there was a separate path for business. I think it's a lot more interesting than that. There are different ways of helping the world. And so I think for me, my goal was that I would have access to a way of helping our community, wherever that would be, whether it was financial access to helping, whether it was giving my career or giving my time. And so I think for me, that was always the goal. The goal was to find a career that I liked and that I could find a way to give back, either directly or indirectly because of it.
In the future, I wanted to be a female that I could probably take control of what I think and be what I want. And when I was young, I wanted to be a vet and wanted to be like a costume designer. I think many girls would think like that they want to be like a costume designer. And sometimes they would just say that girls are meant to do things like art.
When I was younger, I really wanted to have a robot company.
Oh.
It was called Star
yeah.
Incorporated, and I really wanted to drive a BMW. But things definitely changed now.
Yes.
Because right now I have multiple jobs that I'd like to look into in the future. So I think it'll just depend on what pays well and also what I'm more drawn to in the future.
So my father had a business. In his mind, he was very, very sure that it wasn't for girls.
Oh.
So he didn't want me taking over that or any of my sisters.
Oh.
So that's one example. And then there's obviously other things as well.
I always want to be successful in terms of career.
Yeah.
So
True.
and I always want to have a complete family life as well. So I was very greedy. And I want to be successful in career. At the same time, I want to have a loving husband and kids who look up to me.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky enough to have both now.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
I always aim to be like successful in career, great family. I totally agree. So what do you think you will say to other girls or women?
In terms of going after women equality or female power, right? I would say to them that just be comfortable with yourself. Do whatever you want and be confident with who you are. And don't feel that there's a stereotype that you must be.
Yeah.
And don't sacrifice anything in terms of pursue that image that you think suitable for you.
It's equally as important to find success from an aspirational standpoint as it is to find happiness along the way. And I think that sometimes women feel like you have to choose. You either have to lean into a career and lean into succeeding in a traditional way, but you have to do it at an expensive cost of maybe changing yourself or hiding yourself or working so hard that you can't enjoy it. And I wish that I could tell a younger me and also other girls and women that it's okay to change your pace and change your goals and find a balance where you get to balance out sort of traditional success with what you might think is successful. And what might be the most important kind of success is finding happiness and enjoying your job, enjoying your life, enjoying your family. And so, I think that's the biggest message I would want to pass on.
Okay.
Don't let others define who you want to be or how you should be.
Yeah.
How you want to be and what you should be should come inherently to you. Never feel shy of asserting yourself. Don't feel shy of asking what you want.
Yeah.
But also be fair and kind. Never misuse your position. And as I said, a woman means you also have a lot of power and responsibility. So use that very judiciously, but don't change yourself so that you fit into somebody else's worldview.
I would say strive to do your best. Don't think about, I'm a girl, so I can't do this, So I think it doesn't matter whether you're a girl or a boy, as long as you put your head and heart into it, as long as you have passion, go for it. So I think that would be what I would say to them.
I would say be open to new ideas. If equality is what we are aspiring for, we need to stop talking about gender and we need to stop giving it too much importance. So if you're looking at an opportunity, don't think of it as whether it's for a man or for a woman, just go for it. And sometimes the constraints are in our minds, they don't actually exist.
Be confident of yourself. Speak up for yourself. Know your worth. Have dignity. And also, last but not least, love yourself.
Again, I would say to be yourself and be what you truly want to be and face those challenges because of like the discrimination and just overcome all of them and try to be strong.
Just be yourself. Like if you, as stereotypical as it sounds, if you want to follow gender stereotypes, then go ahead. If you don't want to, then do that as well. Basically do whatever you want. Make sure that whatever path you want to take, whatever actions you want to do, just do them because you want to do them. And just know that there are always women or girls around you that will support you and help you with whatever you want.
Yeah. So what kind of action do you think we should promote to like make the issues of gender inequality to like decrease?
I think we really need to focus on the newer generations and just not enforce bad stereotypes on them, because I feel like a boy wouldn't just look at a girl randomly and think she's weaker than him if he hadn't heard that from anyone around him. So I think just older people, including us as teenagers and adults, need to just be more careful with how they talk around younger kids so they don't get the wrong impression.
Yes.
I would say for myself, it would be really helpful if you have like a role model or someone that would lead you. And also, I think now social media is also very strong and people have a lot of advice for you that what you can do.
Well, I think to have more, awareness about this, I don't know, like have events with speakers, talking about this, just trying to embrace and also help all these younger generations to understand that, you need to know your worth.
Yeah, just to bring awareness.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Hope this video is insightful for you, and I hope that everyone can spread the message of gender equality towards the world. My name is Millie, and hope you learned something from this video. Bye!